Hello, welcome to the East Africa Giving Podcast, brought to you by the East Africa Philanthropy Network. This podcast aims at sharing stories of giving and generosity to inspire more people to give back. In this first season, our focus is on youth engagement in giving back by directly engaging with champions of change in local communities. In this episode, you get to hear the story of Mathare Community Outreach as told by its co-founder, Magdalene Ogutu. She tells of how they give back to the less fortunate through education. Here is today's guest.
I am Magdalene Ogutu and I represent Mathare Community Outreach, and in short we normally say MCO. I work in the Resource Mobilization Department and also Head of Finance, and also as a co-founder of MCO. The Mathare Community Outreach is an arm of the Outreach Community Church, and mainly we do education to the vulnerable children in Mathare Valley, whereby we give food as feeding program. We also sponsor children because most of our children come from very vulnerable situations in the slums of Mathare Valley, such that if we are not there, some of these children may not be able to access education. Mathare Community Outreach also has an arm of OVC, Orphaned and Vulnerable Children, where we have an orphanage at Kariobangi that houses about 35 children, where they're able to get education. They're also being taken care of and spiritual growth. And MCO was founded in 1994, and it was founded by Bishop Daniel Ogutu and his wife Magdalene Ogutu. And the reason why this MCO was founded was to respond to the suffering of children in Mathare Valley. These children were living in abject poverty and with no hope of getting education. Getting food on the table is not automatic for a child in the slums of Mathare Valley. And therefore, most of the children were hungry and were not able to go to school, and this is because many parents in Mathare Valley just do casual jobs, and sometimes even paying rent is such a challenge. And so when we started working in the Mathare slums, it was very, very, very difficult because there were so many school-age children that had reached age of going to school and they were not going to school. And that was after my husband, Bishop Ogutu, had felt a call in his heart to serve God in the slum. And it was very difficult for the family, even for me to accept. We had just been married and I had one child, and it was not easy. And I went back, and with my husband, we started praying and asking God, what can we do? Because indeed the children were very vulnerable and very needy. And therefore the program started, and I realized that the children were very hungry. And we started by giving a cup of porridge per day. In doing that, so many other children came, not because they were coming to learn anything, but they were coming because they knew by the end of the day they will get one cup of porridge per day. And as we continued, we recognized that there was need for education, and therefore we started the education wing. First, we started informal school, and within no time, the school was full, and we want to thank God that somebody had come to visit us from Compassion International, and this became our first donor. And when we started now feeding the children properly and giving them a balanced diet, it changed. And the child mortality rate that was so high went down by 50%. And this was because the children now were able to get proper diet. And it just worked on the issues of malnutrition. We have 3 primary schools, 2 primary schools in Mathare Valley, 1 in 4B and 1 in Mathare Area 10, and 1 primary in Kariobangi, and that is where we also have an orphanage. And the impact we have had so far, we have had approximately 17,000 children who have passed through our hands. And we want to thank God that we have also had success stories. If I can give 1 or 2, we had a child who was not part of our program from primary, but when she did her class 8, she passed very well. Unfortunately, at that time, she lost her mother, and she had lost her father earlier on. And therefore, this family became total orphans. And as a church, we took them in, and we managed to take the other children to our orphanage. But this particular lady, we took to secondary school, and she had been called at Buruburu Girls, but she lost that opportunity while they were looking for fee and they didn't know what to do. But later we took her to a boarding school, educated her up to Form 4, and she passed. And after that, she had an interest to do accounts, which we got a sponsor who was able to take her through. And right now, as we're talking, she's an audit associate and she's working in Dubai. And she was now able to take her siblings out of the orphanage and rented a house and be able to take care of them. Although as a program, we continued to support the children, but she was now able to stay with them. Our partners, we have had Compassion International, we have had CCI, Childcare International, Bright Hope International, and Bright Hope World International, and MOHI, Missions of Hope International. For me, it is important to give back to the community because somehow along the line, like me, I have been helped with others, even to get my education. Somebody committed himself to help me walk the education path. And I also feel that in the community, especially in Mathare slums, I feel it is important to give back, especially to the children, in form of education, so that these children also can get an opportunity to get education and maybe also in future to get opportunity of having good jobs so that they will not continue living in this circle of poverty as their parents have lived before. And that's why giving back to the community is important. When we give back and when we give a child, that vulnerable child, an opportunity for education, we are giving back. And therefore, how we can give back is maybe to sponsor a child in the community and also to give back to the community in the form of elevating the parents' situations by starting for them income generating. And in that way, they are able to stand on their own. They are also able to take care of their children. That can help the community to come up. People can give back in our community through sponsoring a child. And because I also talked of an orphanage that we have, people can also give up by visiting these children, giving clothes and also supporting in their school fees and also giving food. And for the youth, in our program, Mathare Community Outreach, I talked that about 17,000 children have gone through our hands. And a few of them have come back to give, which is very good because these children were brought up in Mathare. The children they're talking to have also been brought up in Mathare. So when they see the changes, they get encouraged. And also the youth are also encouraged to come and do something because not just sitting down there and mugging people, because in the slums, that's what the youth do. They will just be doing drugs, mugging people. But when they're active in the community, then they're busy serving humanity, which is a good thing to do. So people can reach us through our website. People also, maybe if somebody has time, can actually physically come and pay us a visit along Juja Road, just after the Moi Airbase Gate. That's where we are. But mainly in social media, we have our website, www.matharevalley.ngo. I hope we will continue sharing the good news to others who can also be able to give back to society. Thank you so much.
That was Magdalene Ogutu, the co-founder of Mathare Community Outreach. You can find out more about the organization by following the links provided in the podcast description. The East Africa Giving Podcast was developed as a product of the East Africa Philanthropy Network, EAPN. You can find out more about the organization through the website www.eaphilanthropynetwork.org or follow the links provided in the podcast description to learn more about the podcast and those involved in its creation. I have been your host, Eugene Kimani, and until the next time we meet, goodbye and thank you for listening.